Alright guys, we're here. This is it. Day 2. Okay, so you guys have seen part 1 already. You know what we're doing. We got a big new reveal, the big update preview, part 2. We're just gonna jump right into this. But I'm very excited. So Legion Commander, champion. She's the only champion, and it's a 1-of alliance. Champions received all the alliances bonuses. So I think this is actually a great design. Let's talk about this a little bit more, but let's look at the rest of her first. So she's a tier 3 unit, and her other tag is human, and her ability is duel. Legion Commander targets the lowest health enemy, and they are forced to attack each other. If either hero dies during the duration, the hero winning the duel gains permanent bonus damage. So permanent damage means forever, like a Brawny buff, basically. And presumably how this works with Phantom boards is if you beat the Phantom Legion Commander, you gain the damage, but if the Phantom Legion beats you, she doesn't, I assume, would have to be how that works. Okay, so let's look at Champion Alliance first. Great design. I think this is actually, like from a design standpoint, this is a beautifully designed alliance. It's simple, elegant, intuitive. It makes you think. There's a lot of different situations where you're like, ooh, maybe we can fit in Champion. Or like, you know, you brainstorm like, ooh, if we combine these 3 alliances in the same way, Champion could fit in and pick up all of them. That could be super cool. It's dynamic. It's very dynamic. And on top of all that, I think it's balanced. It's easy to look at this and be like, wow, that's a really powerful ability. But the more you think about this, and I've been sitting here thinking about this for like 15 minutes now. The more you think about this, the more you think, how good is this actually? Like, how would that actually fit this in? So let's imagine a scenario where you've got 6 elusive and 3 hunters, okay? 7 units total, because, you know, you're running Windrunner and Marana, and those are going to be both hunter and elusive. So you're running that 7-unit comp, and you're thinking about putting in Legion Commander. She would pick up elusive and hunter. Pretty powerful, picking up those 2 alliances, right? But on the other hand, maybe then you're thinking, okay, well, is this really the unit I want? Maybe we should complete our assassins instead. For my 8th unit, put in like Slark, so that the Phantom Assassin and Templar Assassin we have on the board have that completed alliances. And then suddenly you're thinking, wow, gee, completing alliances is a lot better than picking up alliances, right? And we know that. That's like one of the fundamentals of the game. So like the thing is, she can't complete any alliances, right? She can pick up the alliances you have, but she can't complete any. So now you're thinking, okay, maybe I can run her as like a 9th unit then. Maybe we can run her as a 9th unit, and she picks up 3 alliances. That's sweet when she's picking up 3. But then you encounter the problem, duel, the nature of duel, she really wants to be on the board early and for a long time, because she gains that permanent bonus damage. We don't know how big of a damage buff this is, by the way. It could be big. We don't know like what her stats are. All of this is speculatory. But just looking at the champion keyword and alliance, I love the design of this. I think it does look kind of OP to a lot of people at first. I don't think this is necessarily going to be super strong. I don't think it's necessarily super weak either, but it looks pretty fair. Honestly, this is a great design. It's so like, look at this. For 5 words, champions receive all alliance bonuses. You can spend so much time thinking about that concept. It's so simple, but it's such a good concept. I love it. Okay. So she's tier 3. I think it's really important to think about like what the different tiers represent. By the way, a little bit as a player, I'm gonna just deviate before I look into the other alliances. Think about what the different tiers represent. So tier 1s are your kind of transitional units, right? It's like Anti-Mage and Batrider can last on late game boards, but the rest of these tier 1 units are just transitional. They're powerful early sometimes, some cases. Some of them are even weak early, but pretty much none of them is gonna stay on your board at the end. Tier 2s tend to kind of be flexible end game board options. You can, like, different comps are going to run different ones of these. Level value and rule value are both going to want different tier 2s. Like, mage builds that might play for leveling up aggressively, leveling to 9 on 21 or 25, might play for some of these tier 2s. And rule value builds like knights, like Luna, or like hunters like Windvenger, or elusives like Windvenger, are going to be running tier 2s as well. So tier 2s are flexible. They're kind of good all around. They're good early, they're good late, they're good in like roll value, they're good in level value, they're generally good. Tier 3s are your kind of committed roll value units. Like, check these out. Like, all these tier 3 units are kind of carries, right? You want to 3-star these. The exceptions being, like, Crystal Maiden and Tree and Protector, right? But these are units you want to 3-star, basically. And there's a simple reason for that. It's because tier 3 are the highest that stats go. Like, when you 3-star a unit, your odds redouble, right? They double from 1 to 2, and they double from 2 to 3. So they're quadrupling from tier 1. That's a really, really big deal. If we like see this here, we can look at stats and we can see, wow, they're quadrupling. That's crazy. So the base stats matter a lot because they're quadrupling. And tier 3 is the highest you can get in terms of base stats before you get to tier 4, where it's really hard to 3-star these. We've seen 3-star Doom and it's nuts, but it's unreliable and it's really hard. So tier 3 ends up being like the 3-star tier. And tier 4 is kind of like the good stuff. You know, you want to get it to level 2 and you don't really try to 3-star it. So tier 4 are the staples of level value builds that go to 9 on like 21 to 25. That's a level value build, right? So tier 3 and tier 4 are fundamentally very different because of that, right? So let's look at Legion. She's a tier 3, right? And that's perfect. That's the perfect tier for her because she wants to be in a role value build. Role value are the ones that have physical alliances. Those are going to be stuff like knights, stuff like hunters, stuff like assassins. These are going to be elusives. These are going to be ones that will scale off of kind of having a big carry. And Legion Commander is something that's 3-starable. When you 3-star this unit, it's a major threat. Maybe you're picking up 2 or even 3 alliances at that point in the game with Champion, and you've got a lot of damage from Duel. At that point in the game, yeah, I mean, you're looking very good, right? If you get her early, Duel's going to snowball like crazy. If you get like a level 2 Legion Commander before round 10, if you're really lucky, that can happen sometimes. Pre-15, you're pretty happy with. And that Duel's going to snowball in a really big way, right? Most important to note, permanent bonus damage. The only thing in the game we have to compare this to is Brawny. And the most important thing to note is, like, health falls off a decent amount. Like, having a certain amount of health is really good. But having, like, the difference between 4k and 5k HP is so little compared to the difference between 1k and 3k. Or, sorry, 1k and 2k, right? That 1k difference means so much more when it's lower amount. Whereas damage kind of never stops being bad. Like, don't get me wrong, it does fall off a little bit as a stat, but not nearly as much as health. So this is like real snowball potential. Real snowball potential. As you can already imagine, like, the kinds of comps that this can fit in. It's like 3 elusive, 3 hunters, and then maybe you can kind of turn it into 6 elusive, 3 hunter, 3 assassin, like I was saying at the end. It's weird to fit this in, because you do want her, as I was saying before, on the board later because of Champion, but you're kind of forced to run her. If you're running her at all, you need her earlier because of Duel. I think this is a phenomenally well-designed unit, honestly. I think this is extremely cohesive design in every way possible. It's like, it does look kind of OP. It's not going to be as good as it looks. And I'm excited to playing around with her. Okay, yeah, I think that's basically all I can say about Legion Commander. Human tag, of course, can be a little bit valuable sometimes. It depends on the situation. You know, you can be in, maybe like Knights, you know, you have that physical criteria, you know, where you want to get more out of your human alliance. Maybe you can have 4 humans, or you can have Fall from Grace and turn them all into Heartless. Another thing that's really important to understand about Legion Commander is, like, there's a lot of alliances that you don't want to play for if you're playing Legion. Like, your tags become very valuable if you're in Legion. So stuff that buffs everything already, like Scaled or like Mage, stuff that doesn't just buff a subset of units, feels a lot harder to run. Whereas with Legion, you want to pair it with stuff that just kind of in groups, right? Hunters that buff the whole hunters, Assassin that buffs all assassins. It's harder. Heartless, I mean, Heartless is kind of so OP that maybe Heartless can fit in, but you're definitely going to want to go for those, like, physical carry. Often these are like 6 of alliances, like Hunters 3/6, Assassins 3/6, Warriors 3/6, Elusives 3/6. It's just Knights that 2/4/6, but it's another 6 of alliance. Even like Scrappy potentially could be something there. Anyway, let's continue. So there's 2 more new heroes, and that's Lifestealer and Magnus. And a new alliance again, Brute. So for Brute, we have a 4 of alliance, 5 new heroes in this alliance. That's Axe, Lifestealer, Magnus, Treants, and Doom. Whenever a Brute attacks an enemy, they deal additional damage and apply a damage debuff. Brutes prefer to attack enemies that do not have the debuff. So basically, it is just pretty simple. We don't know how much damage. We don't know whether it's flat or percentage based, which matters a lot, by the way. Whether it's like a flat additional damage or percentage based additional damage can dictate whether it's a bit more of an early game or late game alliance, depending on how that goes. And the same with the damage debuff, by the way. We don't know if this is a percent-based damage debuff or a flat damage debuff, right? Flat is going to mean it's better early, and percentages mean it's going to be better late, right? But let's take a look at the brute units themselves, since you guys obviously want to know. Lifestealer, he's a tier 1 heartless brute with feast. Lifesteals his attacks, damage enemies, and heal him for a percentage of his target's maximum health. Okay, let's break this down. So tier 1, that's the first thing we look at. So like I was saying, tier 1s are kind of transitional heroes for the most part. There's a couple exceptions, those being Anti-Mage and Batrider in particular. These units you can have on late game boards sometime. But for the most part, these are units you're kind of sweeping off your board. Which kind of counters how Heartless works as an alliance. Heartless is obviously bad early and really, really good late. Although now that Lifestealer is a Heartless, maybe like Lifestealer Pudge Heartless pairs can actually get early game places for sure. And the more I look at it, the more Brute does look like pretty much an early game alliance. Let's actually evaluate what Brute is going to look like. So we've got Axe, early game transitional unit. We've got Treant, another early game transitional unit. And we've got Doom, who's like a mid-game smasher who works late game, right? But for the most part, it's going to be a little hard running 4 Brutes on your late game board, right? Because Axe and Treant are both transitional units, which means even if Lifestealer is good, and he's a tier 1, so he might not be good enough stat-wise. Even if Lifestealer is good enough, Lifestealer Magnus and Doom would have to be your 3 Brutes late game, and then having like something like an Axe later, unless he's getting buffed, we don't know, isn't going to be that good. So I think Brute to me looks like it's going to be kind of an early to mid-game pair alliance. Unless it's like OP, it feels like it's going to be hard to fit 4 Brutes. Maybe like in the mid-game you can go to 4 Brutes, like early game you're paired on Brutes, mid-game, you know, maybe you pick up an early Doom, so you're like, yeah, I'll go for 4 Brutes for a little bit, but it feels hard to stay in 4 Brutes late game, just because of Axe and Tree both being transitional, even if Lifestealer and Magnus are late game options, which we don't know. Okay. So yeah, Brute feels like a pair, and you will play that pair in a few different situations. Maybe mixing it with Heartless, with some like, you know, Pudge is, you know, as far as we know, still good. We haven't seen any changes to Pudge, who knows? Just like maybe like having something like Doom is kind of always good, so your Brute pair could maybe be Lifestealer Doom, or maybe Magnus Doom, depending on how that works out. And Lifestealer, just the Heartless tag in general. As we know, Heartless tag is OP. Right? It's like, I'm saying Heartless isn't super good early, but it is a very, very valuable tag in general. So maybe this could easily be like some kind of level value, good stuffer build, could run Doom, pair Brutes with Lifestealer, and make use out of his Heartless tag in some way. Could be pretty good. Okay. So let's take a look at Feast. Attacks deal damage to enemies and heal him for a percentage of his target's maximum health. So it's a passive. The damage is dealt based on the enemy's maximum health in addition to the lifesteal, and it's physical damage. So it's not going to do super well against like knights, elusives, warriors, anything with these physical resistances. What it will smash, of course, is Brawnies, who gained like that maximum HP. And Feast will counter them really hard. The problem is, it's like, it's hard to go into the late game with that mentality. It's like let's say there's one Brawny player and you're in top 4, right? So there's 4 players left. And you're like, okay, there's one Brawny player, so I have like, you know, a 33% chance of hitting him every time. Do I maybe start building Lifestealers to get that Feast? I guess you can, but you can't really put it in yet because there's 2 other players, right? And usually it's going to be hard to swap out of your board. So then, you know, you get to like 2 players left when it's just you and him, and then you can put it in. But even when it's like 3 players left, it's hard to put it in. It's hard to build counter, like specific targeting counter strategies in this game, because you don't know who you're going to be against, right? And that matters so much. So it's hard for this unit as a counter to really get there. Lifestealer is a weird unit. It's like Heartless is late game. Feast is a late game ability for sure. But it does look like Brute is an early game ability, right? Especially if either the additional damage or the damage debuff are plus values instead of plus flat instead of plus percentage. Right? That matters a lot. That matters a lot. If Brute is going to be plus damage instead of plus percentage, it's going to be a great, just like early game smasher, maybe even mid game smasher. That's going to be nuts. And Lifestealer will be a good hero then. But it's like Feast is late game, Heartless is late game, Brute is early game, and Tier 1 is early game. So it's like he's being pulled in a couple different directions, and it's going to be hard to run for Brute. So I'm not sure how he's going to fit in. It feels a little bit clunky, but Brutes could be very strong. Let's look at Magnus. Magnus is a Shaman Brute. Very interesting. He's tier 2. So like I was saying, tier 2s are hard to pin down. Tier 2s can be basically anything, right? Depending on just whether you want to, like any... So we look at like the role value. These can be 3-star carries like Beastmaster or even CK or Quap sometime. They can be just like, you know, good value 3 stars in role value builds like Morphling or Puck. They can be like good stuff components like Pudge or Slardar. Two costs are all over the place. They could really be anything. But he's also a Brute. So again, Brute feels very early game because he's tier 2. So again, that's another early game Brute. So 4 out of the 5 Brutes are kind of early game units as far as we can tell, although Magnus might transition. And then we've got Empower. Enrages an ally, granting them damage and cleave temporarily. So Empower, for those of you guys who don't play Dota, it's a low cooldown ability. And what cleave is it's the same as Battle Fury's ability, which hits nearby cells. Now in Dota, cleave has a bit of a wider range than just the 2-cell radius here. I guess they want to change cleave to be a 2-cell radius. We don't know if cleave is getting changed in any way, but what we do know is Battle Fury is kind of shit, right? This cleave, the problem with cleave in this game is it's only hitting 2 tiles. It's only hitting 2 perpendicularly adjacent tiles from where the attack happens, if that makes sense. So cleave is not a super good ability. Now, Empower, of course, you know, the extra damage is going to be nice. And we don't know how the targeting works. If it works like Ogre Magi, he will target units that are closer to him on a short cooldown, which means you'll be able to put your carry next to Magnus and have Magnus empower him, right? And that'll be cool. Cleave, by the way, can only be used on melee units, so you can only really use this on like some melee carry. You can see opportunities there, especially with Brute. He shares the Brute tag, so Magnus Doom is kind of an obvious combo, I guess. Magnus could maybe be your Brute to supplement, and maybe you could empower Doom or some other hero in the same comp, right? Doom as a really hard hitter is a good candidate for Empower, sure. I guess. Shaman is a weird one. We don't know what's going to happen with Shaman, by the way. If I were to say, like, before all these reveals, I have no idea what's happening, but if there's a couple alliances in the game that feel weird and feel like they have to change, I would say Primordial and Shaman are kind of the 2 candidates for alliances that just don't really fit the game that well. They don't really seem to work. Like Primordials, the individual units themselves are pretty powerful, like Arc, Morphling, and Tiny. They're great units, but the alliances, like, the design makes no sense, right? Because, like, this is designing them to kind of be tanks. They want to be frontliners that die early, right? I mean, Tiny's a frontliner that can kind of die early, but he's kind of tanky. Arc Warden's a backliner. He's dying last. Not good for Primordials. Razor's not really designed to be a frontliner. Everything about Razor wants to be a backliner. Plasma Fields wants to be hitting more things from further away. And Morphling's a frontliner, but he dies late because he waveforms to save himself. So Primordial, like, as an alliance just doesn't make sense. It's like, it's so weird, and now Summoning Stone doesn't exist, so it's like, it's even weirder. And Shaman doesn't make sense as an alliance. Because, I mean, it's just, it's very strange. It's like, again, this is another tank ability on units that kind of aren't really tanks, except for maybe Enigma. It's like, what's the point? When am I going to be in a situation where I want to run Shaman? The only answer is, like, when I have a level 2 Arc Warden in open slot and I find, like, 3 Enigmas, I'll be like, I guess I'm running Shaman. But you don't really run that because of the alliance. You're just running it because you have 2 level 2 big dudes. Like, when Enigma gets to level 2, he's good. So I think there's a decent chance Shaman Alliance might be changed. If not reworked, maybe the numbers adjusted on it. So I can look at this tag and it's really hard to say whether Magnus will be a good unit or not. We have no idea what the Shaman Alliance is going to be. But if it is going to be decent, like, let's say if it's going to be good, maybe some, like, good stuff, like level value could run, like, the triangle of Doom, Magnus, and either Arc Warden or Enigma, you know, completing Shaman in that way. Maybe Magnus could, you know, be a good unit fit with Brute. We don't know stats. We don't know anything. Who knows? But I'm just thinking to myself, these are options. I will say, I'm not sure, like, how feasible these are going to be. Brutes could be very powerful, or they could be fairly weak. It does seem a little bit hard between these 5 units to try to, like, link them together in a way that allows you to run 4 Brutes. So they might be condemned to be a pair. Yeah, at a competitive level anyway. So that's going to be it. And, of course, the best news of all, tune back in tomorrow for more. That's crazy. I thought this was a 2-parter. I thought so. I was like, well, this would be a fun 2-parter. There's more tomorrow. Dude, this is like Christmas. This is actually so crazy. So I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow. I mean, I've kind of, like, you know, gone through these. I don't think there's too much more to say. And I guess they're going to give us even more tomorrow. So meet back here tomorrow, same time. You know, we'll make a whole thing out of it. I'll bring the chips. I actually already ate the chips. But yeah, it's okay. It's a good time to be an Underlords player. It really, really is. The like this like pre-patch reveal season. I'm really hyped for the patch. Apparently, it's coming this week. I mean, anyone's guess is like the 23rd or 24th. Because they've been patching on Wednesdays sometimes, but traditionally, of course, they do Thursdays. So I really can't wait. Anyway, I guess part 3 tomorrow. I wonder whether they're even going to show. And just now that my dog's barking, I have to go. Okay, guys. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.